Hello, dear whispered ones. Welcome. Tonight, we embark on a peaceful and profound journey. Allow yourself to relax, close your eyes, and slow your breathing. In the silence of the night, I will take you through the mystical streets of ancient Greece and into the enchanting world of philosophy. Socrates' thoughts will touch our souls like the quiet yet profound traces of a sage. With every word, with every sentence, let yourself unwind a little more and immerse yourself in the rhythm of this story. Just let your thoughts flow gently, like soft ripples on the surface of water. Relax, and as you lose yourself in the depths of the night, be ready to explore a world illuminated by philosophy. Ancient Greece, a land adorned with the vast blue sky, the soothing scent of olive trees, and the grandeur of temples. This place was not only the realm of gods, but also the world of great thinkers. Here, people explored not just their physical existence, but also their intellectual presence and depth. This is the world where ancient Athens rose. The city was a vibrant hub where great philosophers were born, debates lasted until dawn, and new ideas emerged from every corner. Athens became the home of philosophy, a stage where humanity sought answers to its most fundamental questions. It was a place where echoes of questions like "Who am I? Why am I here?" filled the air. Temples, marketplaces, the agora, and the columns that rose within the city all stood as symbols of the depths the human mind could explore. In this place, individuals thrived not only through trade but also through wisdom. People would shop in the marketplaces in the morning, and for the rest of the day, they would engage in discussions with philosophers, uncovering the meaning of life and exploring the depths of existence. There was something else in this city, a profound intellectual curiosity. The Athenians strived to understand the laws of the universe and the mysteries of the human soul beyond the boundaries of everyday life. In such a world, in the wide streets of Athens, a man slowly began to make a name for himself. Socrates, a man in search of wisdom. He mingled among the people, aiming to reveal the most complex truths through simple questions. Amid the chaos of Athens, a quiet philosophical revolution was beginning. Among the bright days of Athens, there was a man who wandered the city's streets and conversed with the people in the marketplaces. With his long beard and simple clothing, he might have seemed ordinary at first glance, but he was very different from others. When people sat across from him, they soon realized that an ordinary conversation would transform into a deep inquiry. This man was Socrates. Socrates was the wise soul of ancient Greece, and amidst all the crowds, he was the quiet but profound leader of a revolution. Socrates was more than just a recognized philosopher. He was a symbol of the quest for truth. He believed that wisdom was born within a person and could only be revealed through questioning. To him, questions mattered more than answers. And as these questions echoed through the streets of Athens, the consciousness and intellectual landscape of the people began to take shape. He did not speak in front of large crowds, but engaged with individuals in everyday life, at street corners, market stalls, or in the shadow of temples. He did not look down like a sage, but debated on equal terms with everyone. He would question the craftsmanship of an artisan or probe a merchant's sense of justice because his aim was to lead people toward discovering their own truths. This approach set Socrates apart from other thinkers in Athens. He was not interested in those who claimed to be wise, but rather in those who sought their own journey of wisdom. Unlike the sophists, he did not sell knowledge, he preferred to plant the seeds of thought. The echo of his questioning voice in the streets of Athens eventually created a philosophical wave. Socrates became not just a wise man, but a guide in the pursuit of knowledge, virtue, and truth. Now, dear whispered ones, get ready to dive deep into the thought world of Socrates on this enchanting journey. As we follow in the footsteps of this wise man, we will explore the turning points of his life, his philosophical inquiries, and the legacy he ultimately left behind. This is not just the story of a man, but also the tale of a quest in pursuit of knowledge and virtue. First, we will look into Socrates' youth and how his family shaped him. Although he served as a soldier, he was a man whose battles of the mind were far stronger than any physical combat he faced. His military life and his connection with the social fabric of Athens laid the foundation for his philosophy. Next, we will discover Socrates' way of thinking, his famous Socratic method. The art of revealing complex truths through seemingly simple questions. These inquiries will show how he sparked a revolution in Athens and shaped the minds of its people. The impact of this revolution would resonate not only in his time, but for centuries to come. Lastly, we will witness Socrates' trial and his final moments. We'll feel how a man in pursuit of truth stood firm in his beliefs and left an indelible mark on history. The philosophical advice he shared with his students in his final moments continues to echo today, shining a light for us in our own search for wisdom. This journey will allow us to explore not only the dusty pages of history, but also the depths of the human soul. Relax and step into a world illuminated by philosophy, guided by Socrates himself. Once upon a time, in the narrow streets of Athens, amidst the noisy marketplaces and the shadows of temples, a child was born. This child was Socrates, who would one day illuminate the minds of humanity. Socrates did not come from a noble family. His father, Socrates, was a sculptor, and his mother, Fables, was a midwife. He did not grow up in the luxurious world of the wealthy, but in a setting where workers earned their living with their hands. These were the first steps that shaped his humble and inquisitive nature. His father breathed life into figures from stone. With each strike of the chisel, a sculpture would come alive, transforming a mere piece of stone into a beautiful work of art. As Socrates watched his father, he might have thought that life and knowledge, too, needed to be carved out in this way. Just as a sculptor patiently shaped stone, he would come to believe that the mind and soul needed to be refined carefully. His mother, on the other hand, witnessed the miracle of births, teaching him that each new life was the beginning of a quest. Socrates grew up in a home where these two crafts, sculpting and the art of midwifery, intertwined. He learned how to shape stone on one hand and how to bring a life into the world on the other. Later, when he described himself as a midwife of the mind, it was perhaps a reflection of these early years. He would become someone who helped knowledge and truth come to life, just as his mother brought new lives into the world. Throughout his youth, he roamed freely through the streets of Athens, listened to the conversations of philosophers, and spent time among the people in the marketplaces. The city he lived in offered him a vast space where he could ask all his questions and seek all the answers. His mind was constantly active, observing and striving to understand the true nature of humans. These early years of Socrates' life marked the first steps in his quest for wisdom, steps that would eventually make him one of the greatest thinkers of ancient Greece. Young Socrates, as he wandered through the bustling streets of Athens, found the questions in his mind multiplying each day. Although there were many teachers and thinkers from whom he could receive an education, he preferred seeking knowledge not from a book or a school, but within the experiences of life itself. In the agora of Athens, in the shadows of temples, or amidst the chaos of marketplaces, the seeds of wisdom were being sown in his soul. In his early youth, Socrates showed interest in sciences like physics and astronomy. He sought to unravel the mysteries of the universe. The stars that sparkled in the night sky and the moon that illuminated the darkness were not just natural wonders to him, but keys to a grand cosmic secret. However, he soon realized that such knowledge was not enough for him. Understanding the laws of the universe was wonderful, but exploring the depths hidden within the human soul was far more captivating. Socrates' interest in philosophy deepened through conversations with the most well-known sophists and philosophers of his time. However, he found the sophist approach to knowledge different from his own. They viewed knowledge as a commodity, providing people only with the answers they sought. Socrates, on the other hand, was in search of something beyond that. To him, knowledge should be the key to a treasure, but that treasure ought to be the answers to the most profound and complex questions about humanity. Thus, Socrates dedicated himself to a different path. He aimed to go beyond existing knowledge, developing a method that would allow individuals to truly understand themselves and the world around them. It was at this point that he realized the importance of questioning and dialogue. He believed that the best way for a person to learn was through engaging in deep conversations with others and seeking truth by asking each other questions. This approach would later become the foundation of his philosophy, known as the Socratic method. Each question opened the door to another. Each dialogue was a step taken on the path of wisdom. His mind was constantly at work, trying to understand people's thoughts and transform their ways of thinking. To him, philosophy was not just a quest for knowledge, but a way of life. During this period, within the vibrant cultural fabric of Athens, Socrates' ideas began to take shape, laying the foundations of the philosophical system that would make him one of the greatest thinkers in history. In the early years of his youth, Socrates distinguished himself not only through his quest for wisdom but also by taking up arms to defend Athens. As a great city-state, Athens faced external threats from time to time, and participating in these battles was both an honor and a responsibility for its citizens. Socrates, with his courage and loyalty, did not shy away from fulfilling these duties. He fought bravely in the battles of Delium and Potidaea, standing among those who defended Athens. On the battlefield, as much as the bravery of other soldiers, it was Socrates' calm and determined demeanor that drew attention. For him, the pursuit of wisdom did not end even in the midst of war. Even when facing death so closely, he was a man who questioned the meaning of fear and courage, reflecting on the fleeting nature of life. His friends saw his determination not just as a soldier's bravery, but also as a reflection of the philosophical stance that lay deep within his soul. His composed and steadfast attitude on the battlefield was an expression of his life philosophy, advocating that, regardless of circumstances, one must seek the truth within oneself. When he returned to the streets of Athens after the war, Socrates became an even more well-known figure among the people. The courage he had shown in battle earned him respect. However, he saw this respect as an opportunity to deepen his philosophical inquiries. He sought to connect the courage of a soldier with the virtue of a sage. Drawing from his wartime experiences, he continued his pursuit of wisdom in times of peace. To him, the greatest lesson to be learned from war was that courage and justice were inner virtues. As the people of Athens got to know this wise soldier, his profound thoughts and seemingly simple, yet deeply complex, questions began to resonate within society. Socrates transformed the ordinariness of daily life into a philosophical journey. He turned a simple conversation into a discovery that illuminated the minds of those around him. The courage he displayed in battle became a tool he used to ask the deepest questions within Athenian society, directing people toward the pursuit of truth and virtue. This period of Socrates' life revealed his deep connection with Athenian society and his journey from soldier to philosopher. He was both a courageous warrior and a sage in pursuit of wisdom and virtue. These two aspects immortalized him not only in the streets of Athens but also in the annals of history. Amidst the bustling streets of Athens, among the echoes of voices in the marketplaces, there was a man who stopped and asked the simplest yet deepest questions. This man was Socrates. However, his questions did not stem merely from curiosity or a desire to know. His goal was to embark on a journey that delved deep into the human mind. Socrates believed that the pursuit of wisdom was a path shaped by questions. This path came to be known as the Socratic method, named after him. But how did this method come into being? Socrates believed that within every person existed a truth and wisdom, but this truth could only be revealed through questioning and dialogue. To him, accepting knowledge without questioning it was nothing more than blind faith. True wisdom was not the result of obtaining information, but rather the continuous questioning of that information. This is why Socrates asked the most fundamental questions. What is justice? What does virtue mean? Where does wisdom come from? At first glance, these questions seemed simple, but they were like doors forcing people to examine their thoughts and beliefs deeply. Socrates aimed, through these questions, to strip away the layers of false or superficial knowledge in a person's mind and lead them to the truth. Each question opened the door to the next. Each answer was the beginning of a deeper inquiry. Socrates applied this method in marketplaces, in the shadows of temples, and among the people. When people began a conversation with him, they suddenly found themselves in the midst of a profound inquiry. Rather than teaching wisdom, he guided individuals to discover their own. He acted not as a teacher, but as a guide, helping others experience inner enlightenment. Socrates did not sell knowledge, he helped people discover their own truths. He referred to this method as being a midwife of the mind, inspired by his mother's craft of midwifery. Just as a midwife assisted in bringing new life into the world, Socrates guided the birth of knowledge within the human mind through his questions. For him, philosophy was not just an abstract mental exercise, but a pathway to one's own truth. Therefore, his questions became the first steps in the quest for wisdom and the beginning of a philosophical revolution echoing through the streets of Athens. For Socrates, knowledge was not something simply learned from books or teachers, it was a treasure hidden deep within the human soul. Accessing this treasure was only possible through questioning and self-discovery. Socrates accepted the maxim "know thyself" as the cornerstone of his philosophy. To him, without self-knowledge, one could not attain true wisdom or virtue. Knowledge was like a light hidden within a person, and this light could only be revealed through a deep process of questioning and contemplation. However, attaining knowledge was not merely a mental exercise. Morality and virtue were inseparable parts of this journey. Socrates viewed knowledge as intertwined with virtue. To him, knowledge was not just knowing something but also living in accordance with that knowledge. When Socrates said, "No one does wrong willingly," he argued that wrongdoing stemmed from ignorance. He believed that someone who possessed true knowledge would naturally behave rightly and virtuously, as knowledge was a guiding force that illuminated and directed a person toward the right path. Virtue, in Socrates' philosophy, was a quality that emerged from an individual's inner quest. He believed that virtues such as justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom sprouted from the depths of a person's soul. These virtues were not imposed by external rules or societal expectations, but were values that the individual needed to cultivate within themselves. According to Socrates, a virtuous life required inner harmony and spiritual balance. Therefore, achieving wisdom was only possible through discovering one's virtues and reflecting them in one's life. Socrates' statement, "Virtue is knowledge," was a summary of his understanding of knowledge and morality. It expressed the idea that virtue was based on knowledge and that knowledge was the path to virtue. When a person reached true knowledge, it would reveal to them how they should live, what was right, and what was wrong. In his philosophy, knowledge and virtue were two parts of an inseparable whole. They complemented each other, illuminated the individual, and guided them toward a noble life. In the bustling marketplaces of Athens, during his conversations with the people, Socrates discussed these ideas, asking simple yet profound questions that challenged their thoughts. He would ask, "What is justice?" or "What is virtue like?" and encourage them to think deeply. He did not pursue simple answers. Instead, he opened a door for people to question themselves and their lives. Each conversation left a resonance in people's souls, drawing them into a deeper pursuit of wisdom. In this way, Socrates' philosophical teachings echoed not only in words but also as a quest intertwined with life itself, resonating through the streets of Athens. In the bustling marketplaces of Athens, during an era when knowledge and philosophy reigned, a group of educators known as the Sophists were among the most prominent figures in the city. They promised to shape young minds and educate them through their mastery of knowledge and rhetoric. However, this education came at a cost. The Sophists commercialized knowledge, treating it as a commodity to be bought and sold. To them, knowledge was merely a tool for persuasion and power. Socrates, however, was entirely opposed to this understanding. Socrates did not shy away from questioning the methods of the Sophists. He criticized their superficial approach to knowledge and their manipulative use of rhetoric. The Sophists blurred the lines between persuasion and truth, hiding reality behind eloquent words and ornate phrases. What mattered to them was changing people's opinions and winning arguments. Socrates, on the other hand, had a different outlook. His goal was not to win debates, but to uncover the truth. In his discussions with the Sophists, Socrates adopted an approach that was sincere and honest, in contrast to the Sophists' rhetorical tactics. Rather than focusing on winning a debate, he aimed to reveal the thoughts and beliefs of the person before him. What mattered to him was helping people discover their own inner wisdom. Socrates viewed the Sophists' efforts to craft elaborate sentences as a veil that concealed the truth. His aim was to lift this veil and guide everyone to discover their own truth and wisdom. While the Sophists sought to shake people's beliefs and persuade them of their own viewpoints, Socrates, as a midwife of the mind, guided individuals to uncover the knowledge within themselves. His questions came from a much deeper place than the Sophists' ornate words. With a seemingly simple question, he could shake a person's entire thought structure, leading them to question their own beliefs. Socrates argued that wisdom was not merely an art of persuasion, but an inner quest and a deep process of inquiry. Socrates' debates with the Sophists formed the foundation of his philosophical stance. He saw knowledge not as a means of power, but as a guide in one's inner journey. Therefore, his conversations in the marketplaces of Athens were not just debates, but invitations for people to find their own truth and virtue. This sincere and genuine approach was one of the most significant traits that set Socrates apart from the Sophists and immortalized his philosophy. Socrates' passion for knowledge and truth did not just echo through the streets of Athens, his teachings deeply influenced many young minds. Surrounding him were numerous young students who joined him on his philosophical journey and embraced his teachings. However, two of these students played the most significant role in carrying Socrates' legacy and ideas into the future: Plato and Xenophon. Plato was born into one of Athens' noble families. In his youth, like other young men in the city, he attended the lessons of sophists and other teachers, seeking knowledge. However, when Plato met Socrates, he realized that what he was searching for was much deeper than what the sophists taught. Socrates' simple yet profound questions and sincere quest sparked a flame in Plato's heart. Alongside Socrates, he found not only a teacher but also a friend with whom he could freely share his thoughts and questions. Plato internalized Socrates' teachings and methods, and together they participated in philosophical discussions in the streets of Athens. However, Plato's admiration and devotion to Socrates became even more apparent after Socrates' death. Plato immortalized his teacher's teachings and memories by writing them down. In his dialogues, Socrates' voice echoed, and his philosophical questions and methods emerged in every line. Plato became Socrates' most loyal student and the greatest advocate of his ideas. Another important student was Xenophon. Xenophon was another young man who participated in philosophical discussions with Socrates. However, he was interested not only in philosophy but also in a military career. Socrates' courage in battle and his understanding of virtue instilled deep respect in Xenophon. He adopted Socrates' brave spirit and quest for justice as a guide in his own life. Xenophon attended Socrates' lessons and, together with him, questioned the meaning of virtue and knowledge. After Socrates' death, Xenophon, like Plato, documented his teacher's memories and teachings to pass them on to future generations. In his works, Socrates' voice could also be heard. However, Xenophon portrayed Socrates from a more practical and life-oriented perspective. Unlike Plato, Xenophon's writings focused on Socrates' daily behavior and his advice on living a virtuous life. These two students carried Socrates' teachings and legacy forward, each in their own way, and set his philosophy on an eternal journey. Plato's idealistic outlook and Xenophon's practical account helped transmit Socrates' deep and multifaceted philosophical legacy into the future. The wise voice that once echoed in the marketplaces of Athens continued to resonate not just in one city but in the minds and hearts of many for centuries, thanks to the writings of his students. Socrates' wisdom and profound method of inquiry did not remain confined to his lifetime alone. Loyal students like Plato and Xenophon made great efforts to carry this wisdom into the future by reshaping their master's teachings through their own perspectives. They enriched the legacy Socrates left behind and propelled philosophy to new horizons. Plato was one of Socrates' most influential students. After his teacher's death, Plato decided to establish an academy in Athens to develop and pass on Socrates' philosophy to new generations. This academy became one of the first institutions of higher education in history, and Plato combined Socrates' teachings with his own philosophical system. By documenting Socrates' dialogues, Plato immortalized the quest for wisdom through these writings. In Plato's dialogues, Socrates' voice and questions remained alive. However, Plato used these dialogues as a medium to express his own philosophical ideas and to deepen Socrates' legacy further. Drawing inspiration from Socrates' teachings, he explored topics such as the world of forms, justice, virtue, and the nature of the human soul. Plato transformed Socrates' quest for knowledge and virtue into a vision of an ideal society and individual. In his academy, Socrates' spirit continued to illuminate young minds. On the other hand, Xenophon also played a significant role in spreading Socrates' teachings, but he took a different approach than Plato. Xenophon presented Socrates' philosophy from a more practical perspective. He focused on Socrates' moral virtues and how these virtues could be applied in daily life. He explained Socrates' values, such as justice, courage, and temperance, by adapting them to the lives of ordinary people. In his works, Socrates' advice and personal experiences take center stage. Xenophon blended his master's lessons with military and political themes, presenting Socrates' ideas as a guide for social life. The differing approaches of Plato and Xenophon enriched and expanded Socrates' legacy. On one side, Plato's idealistic and profound philosophical views, and on the other, Xenophon's practical and applicable advice, revealed two distinct facets of Socrates' philosophy. As a result, Socrates' wisdom became not just a mode of thought, but both an abstract and a tangible philosophical system. Socrates' students developed his teachings, enriching philosophy as both an academic and practical field. This pursuit of wisdom, which began in Athens, echoed across different regions for centuries thanks to their efforts. Socrates' voice was immortalized through the writings of his students, becoming a guiding light in humanity's quest for wisdom. Socrates' method of inquiry and quest for wisdom, which began in the streets of Athens, did not only influence the people of his time but also impacted countless thinkers and philosophical movements over the centuries. His philosophy, like a seed, sprouted across different eras and regions. His teachings resonated deeply within the human mind, growing and evolving. The simple yet profound questions posed by this wise man formed the foundation of philosophy and inspired many philosophers to build their own systems following in his footsteps. Plato, as Socrates' most devoted student, was the first to deepen his legacy and expand his philosophy within a broader framework. Concepts such as Plato's theory of forms and the Republic were shaped by the teachings of Socrates. Plato took Socrates' pursuit of wisdom and virtue into an abstract realm. The dialogues Socrates initiated in everyday life reached a more profound and conceptual level within Plato's philosophical system. Plato's academy carried forward the Socratic tradition and method, and among his students were great thinkers like Aristotle. Aristotle, as a student of Plato, developed his own system influenced by the teachings of Socrates and Plato's philosophy. However, unlike Socrates and Plato, Aristotle grounded philosophy on a more empirical and observational basis. Still, Socrates' method of inquiry was a foundational approach underlying Aristotle's ideas on logic and ethics. Socrates' maxim, "Know thyself," became an essential aspect of Aristotle's studies on human nature and ethics. Thus, Socrates' philosophy did not remain merely a system of thought, but became a foundation that allowed for the in-depth exploration of human nature and wisdom. Socrates' influence extended beyond ancient Greece. Great thinkers of the Roman Empire and the Islamic philosophers of the Middle Ages were also inspired by his ideas. Cicero examined Socratic dialogues and ethics, bringing new life to Roman philosophy. In the Islamic world, great philosophers such as Al-Farabi and Averroes translated and interpreted the works of Socrates and Plato, blending this tradition of wisdom with Islamic philosophy. They combined Socrates' inquisitive approach and pursuit of wisdom with the ethical and metaphysical foundations of Islam, creating a new philosophical perspective. During the Renaissance, Socrates emerged as a rediscovered sage in Europe. Humanists embraced his philosophy, which centered on the individual and virtue, integrating his teachings with the rise of free thought and science. Pioneers of modern philosophy, such as Descartes and Kant, drew inspiration from Socrates' maxim, "Know thyself," advocating that individuals should question their own existence and knowledge. Socrates' philosophical method echoed in the foundations of scientific thinking and individual freedom. Thus, the simple yet profound questions Socrates asked in the streets of Athens gradually evolved into a universal quest for wisdom. His philosophy took root in various systems of thought, from ancient Greece to the medieval Islamic world, from the Renaissance to modern philosophy, shedding light on humanity's deepest questions throughout history. Socrates continued to resonate as a living sage in every era and region, echoing with each step taken on the journey toward truth. His voice became not merely an echo of the past, but a guide for the future. Socrates, who once embarked on a quest for wisdom in the streets of Athens, seeking deep truths through simple questions, eventually found himself standing in a courtroom. While his method of questioning and encouraging others to examine their beliefs fascinated many, it also became uncomfortable for some. The leaders of Athens and the sophists were uneasy with Socrates' different and probing approach. They came together to silence this wise man and put an end to his inquiries. In the trial against Socrates, two main charges were brought: corrupting the youth and not believing in the gods of Athens. His accusers argued that Socrates was trying to undermine Athens' sacred beliefs and lead the youth astray by confusing their minds. He was portrayed as a rebel against the gods and a disruptor of tradition. However, Socrates understood that behind these accusations were those who were disturbed by his questioning style. The truth lay in the fears of those who did not comprehend the power and influence of his philosophy. In the courtroom, Socrates defended himself with calmness and composure. He explained that his true intention was to open the minds of Athens' youth and encourage them to walk the path of wisdom, aiming to enlighten their souls. To him, one could only reach true virtue by questioning oneself and one's beliefs. As for the gods of Athens, Socrates asserted that he did not deny their existence. Rather, he believed they were divine beings supporting humanity's quest for wisdom. However, the court paid little heed to Socrates' defense. They saw a threat behind the wise man's words. Socrates' desire for people to question their beliefs and his encouragement for society to rethink itself was viewed as a danger to the stability of Athens. His teachings were revolutionary. They represented a silent challenge to the society's beliefs, traditions, and authority. In the trial, Socrates faced not only the accusations but also his own beliefs and philosophical stance. He argued that true freedom was for an individual to find their own truth and live by it. A wise person does not hesitate to sacrifice their life in defense of truth, he said. In court, he stood firm for the values he believed in and showed that he was not afraid to sacrifice himself. Through this process, Socrates reminded the people of Athens that his philosophy and pursuit of wisdom were worth more than his own life. And so, Socrates' journey in the courtroom became a stage that demonstrated the power of his philosophy and his commitment to truth. As a quiet yet steadfast symbol of wisdom, he stood as a defender of truth and freedom in the courts of Athens.